Let's look at this. I hope you understand what this is. Now, have you ever heard of the term things that they do not want you to know? Well, today we're going to go over that term. Today I'm going to use these equal flows as an examples to show you what they don't want you to know and cover a topic that's in debate called over unity. We're going to prove that both exist. Let's start here. Do you know what this device is? It's called a tie grid inverter or a grid tied inverter. We're going to be using it with the Delt EcoFlow 2. Now, let's take a better look at this. So let's use it. As you notice, we have a DC plug and the tie grid, which both of them will connect together. If we do this, this means that this EcoFlow will now put energy back into the grid of your household. If you looked at the diagram before, you can see exactly what this does if you don't understand what tie grids do. What we want to know, if we have 5 EcoFlows and 5 of these tie grids inverters, can we the energy of one EcoFlow in a unit of many? We have already done these tests and we know that it works, but let's see what AI has to say about the subject.
Introduction. The term over-unity has sparked significant debate and confusion in modern times, particularly in the fields of energy systems and engineering. The conventional interpretation within these fields suggests a scenario where an output exceeds its input, seemingly defying the law of conservation of energy. However, this technical use of over-unity is a relatively recent development and is often criticized as being impossible or fraudulent. In this paper, we will explore the historical and linguistic roots of over-unity, tracing the origins and evolution of the words over and unity, long before the advent of electricity. We will also examine how these terms were applied in ancient practices, such as bucket brigades, and how the modern use of over-unity emerged and diverged from its original meaning. Historical and linguistic origins. The words over and unity have existed in the English language for centuries, each carrying specific meanings that are widely recognized. Over, derived from Old English ofer, meaning above or beyond. The term has been used since ancient times to describe something that exceeds a certain limit or standard. Unity, derived from Latin unitas, meaning oneness or togetherness. The word has been used since the 13th century to describe the state of being united or joined as a whole. Examples of early use: bucket brigades and human chains. One of the earliest and most practical examples of over-unity in its original sense can be found in bucket brigades and human chains, where people would stand in a line to pass water buckets or sandbags from one person to the next. This method, used since ancient times, including during the Egyptian era, demonstrates how individuals work together, unity, to achieve a goal by passing objects over through a coordinated effort. This practice is centuries old, long predating the discovery and utilization of electricity. The emergence of modern over-unity. The term over-unity began to gain attention in the 20th century, particularly in the context of energy systems. It was often used to describe theoretical or speculative devices that purportedly produced more energy than they consumed. This idea, while appealing to those seeking revolutionary energy solutions, contradicts the established laws of physics. Key moments: 1980s and 1990s. The concept of over-unity as it relates to energy systems gained popularity during these decades, often associated with alternative energy devices or perpetual motion machines. These devices claim to achieve efficiency greater than 100%, meaning more output energy than input. However, such claims have been consistently debunked by the scientific community. Present day. Today, the term over unity is widely recognized within energy discussions as a concept that is scientifically unfounded. Despite this, it continues to be a topic of interest for some researchers and inventors who challenge conventional energy principles. Misconceptions and reclaiming the term. The modern fixation on over-unity as an energy concept has overshadowed its broader historical applications. This paper argues that the term over-unity should not be restricted to its controversial energy-related usage. Instead, we should recognize its roots in describing coordinated efforts where something, whether physical objects, energy, or efforts, is passed or amplified through collective unity. Conclusion. The history of over-unity is one of linguistic evolution and modern reinterpretation. While the term has become synonymous with controversial energy claims, its original meanings and uses are far more grounded in practical historical practices that predate modern technology by centuries. By understanding this history, we can reclaim the term over-unity to reflect a broader and more accurate perspective, free from the misconceptions that have arisen in recent decades. This paper aims to clarify that while the scientific community may dismiss modern over-unity claims, the concept of working together to achieve something greater than individual efforts is timeless and valid. The term over-unity should not be confined to its controversial recent use, but should also be appreciated in its original, broader context. At one of my seminars, a gentleman approached me with a question that has become emblematic of the misunderstanding surrounding the term over-unity. He asked, "Can you get more energy out than you put in?" I paused to consider his question because I knew it hinged on how the terms were being used. Technically, in the conventional sense, you cannot get more energy out than you put in. This aligns with the laws of physics. However, if we interpret his question differently, there is a nuanced understanding that can be reached. What if he was referring to putting in a small amount of energy, such as charging a single battery, and then, through unification of multiple batteries, obtaining more energy output in terms of extended duration or watt hours? By connecting the batteries in a coordinated system where each battery is treated as a separate entity and only engaged when needed, you effectively create a scenario where the system's overall energy output is optimized over time. This method allows you to draw on the energy of fresh batteries sequentially, extending the total time the system can provide power without needing to charge all batteries simultaneously. This approach is a clear demonstration of how the term over-unity can be misunderstood. The phrase, "more energy out than you put in," can easily be misinterpreted. People often fail to recognize that it's not about generating more energy than was originally inputted, but rather about efficiently managing and utilizing the energy across multiple components in a system. It's a matter of language, interpretation, and how we convey ideas that leads to these misconceptions. The scientific community has long struggled with the logistics of language and the precise meanings of terms, which can obscure the original intent of words. The historical meaning of over-unity, grounded in the linguistic roots of over and unity, should not be dismissed simply because a new interpretation has gained prominence. When I use the term over-unity, I refer to the concept of unifying components in such a way that the overall system performs more effectively and efficiently than any single component could on its own. To further clarify, consider some examples of over-unity as I define it. A bicycle. When you pedal a bicycle, you rotate your feet in a circular motion, applying force through each pedal stroke. This continuous unified motion, combining rotation with downward pressure, exemplifies over-unity. The energy exerted by each pedal stroke is combined to propel the bicycle forward, creating a system where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. A water wheel. A water wheel operates on the principle of over-unity by unifying multiple buckets attached to the wheel. Each bucket fills with water, adding weight and causing the wheel to turn. As the wheel turns, it can perform work, such as grinding grain or generating power. The combined effect of all the buckets working together generates more consistent energy output than would be possible with a single bucket alone. These examples illustrate that over-unity has existed for centuries, dating back to the times of the Egyptians who used water to perform work. If these are what people refer to as overunity, then they are indeed correct. However, the idea of getting more energy out than you ever put in without a proper understanding of the underlying principles is a misconception. To demonstrate this misunderstanding, I often use a simple example in my classes. I place a glass on the table, fill it a quarter of the way with water, and then present an empty glass to someone. I ask them to get more water out of the first glass than what was put in. When they attempt to add more water, I point out that they have added more, which contradicts their initial claim of getting more out than was ever put in. This exercise highlights how the phrase more energy out than you put in is inherently flawed when taken at face value. It has nothing to do with the true meaning of overunity, which is about the unification of components to achieve greater efficiency, not the creation of energy from nothing. The essence of overunity lies in time and the unity of the system. By understanding this, we can reclaim the term and use it correctly to describe systems that operate efficiently by combining and coordinating individual components. Understanding overunity through simplified equations. To fully grasp the concept of overunity as I define it, it's important to consider the principles of energy flow and time management within a system. The following simplified equations serve as a snippet of the broader mathematical framework I've developed over several books on the subject. While these equations do not reveal the complete system, due to both security reasons and the complexity of the full model, they illustrate the fundamental ideas behind my interpretation of overunity. Energy flow and time shift equation. Consider a battery system where energy flows in and out over time. The energy flowing through the system can be represented by the equation E equals frac V 1 minus T. Here, minus E represents the energy flowing through the system. V is the control variable that regulates the flow of energy. T is time, with the expression 1 minus T representing a time shift between the points of energy input and output. This equation ensures that the system remains in equilibrium with no net gain or loss of energy, thus maintaining a consistent flow. The control variable V adjusts how energy is managed over time, emphasizing the concept of unification rather than creating energy from nothing. Integrating energy flow over time. To expand on this idea, let's integrate the energy flow over time to represent the total energy dynamics within the system. Int E in T dt equals V T E out T dt, where minus E in T minus A is the energy flowing into the battery system at time T. E out T is the energy flowing out of the battery system at time T. Vt is the control variable representing the time shift between the inflow and outflow of energy. This integral equation shows that the accumulated energy flowing into the system is balanced by the accumulated energy flowing out, modified by the control variable Vt. The concept here is that by properly managing the timing and flow of energy, we can maintain a stable and efficient system, one that operates on the principles of overunity as defined by the unification and timing of its components. Algebraic and calculus considerations. To further break down the relationship between energy and time, we can manipulate the initial equation algebraically. 1 minus t dot E equals V. Taking this a step further, we can apply calculus to examine the rate of change of energy over time. The derivative with respect to time t is given by frac dE dt dV dt. This derivative represents the rate at which energy changes over time, which is directly related to how the control variable V changes over time. This insight is crucial for understanding how to manage energy within the system effectively. Conclusion: the role of overunity in system efficiency. These simplified equations offer a glimpse into the broader mathematical model I've developed for overunity. The key takeaway is that overunity, as I define it, revolves around the efficient management of energy within a system through unification and time control, rather than creating more energy than is initially present. This concept applies across various domains, from battery management to mechanical systems, emphasizing that the true power of overunity lies in the unity and coordination of its components. Conclusion: reclaiming the true definition of over-unity. The term over-unity has been misinterpreted and misrepresented over the years, particularly within the scientific community, where it has come to be associated with the unrealistic and scientifically unsubstantiated idea of producing more energy than is put into a system. However, by returning to the original dictionary-based meanings of over and unity, we can rediscover a concept that is both logical and grounded in reality. True over-unity and the equations presented. The equations discussed in this paper, including E equal frac V V1 minus T and the simplified E frac V1, are valid mathematical representations of how energy can be effectively managed within a system. These equations illustrate the idea that by unifying components, whether they be batteries, mechanical elements, or other energy sources, we can optimize the flow and use of energy in a way that enhances the overall system's performance. This is the essence of true over-unity. Not producing more energy than was input, but rather achieving a more efficient and effective use of that energy through intelligent design and coordination. In the equation, E equals frac V1, where V represents the control variable and 1 represents the unifying factor or source, we see a clear expression of the concept that energy output E is directly tied to how the system is managed. This equation is a simplified version, but it encapsulates the principle that by carefully controlling and unifying the inputs, the system can perform at its best. Historical context and personal reflection. I first developed these ideas when I was just 14 years old, inspired by concepts that would later appear in popular culture. Around the time the movie Back to the Future was released, I had written about a system that I described using the term fluctuation capacity, which later seemed to echo in the movie's fictional flux capacitor. The character in the movie, coincidentally sharing my first name, Lloyd, famously hit his head on a toilet and then invented the flux capacitor, symbolized by a capital Y, a symbol I had already been using in my own work to represent the over-one concept in my equations. This uncanny coincidence caused me to withdraw my ideas, feeling embarrassed and misunderstood. However, now I believe it's time to bring these concepts into the light and clarify the true meaning of over-unity. The true over-unity is not about violating the laws of physics. It is about creating systems that are more than the sum of their parts, using unification and intelligent design to enhance efficiency and performance. Final thoughts. In closing, the definition of over-unity should not be confined to the flawed notion of generating more energy than is input. Instead, it should reflect the power of unity in creating stronger, more efficient systems. The equations presented in this paper are a glimpse into a larger body of work that explores these principles in depth. By understanding and embracing the true definition of over-unity, we can develop systems that make better use of available energy, optimize performance, and perhaps most importantly, adhere to the fundamental laws of physics. I hope this paper serves as the first step in redefining and reclaiming over-unity for what it truly is, the unification of components to create something greater than the individual parts could achieve alone. If this work is acknowledged and understood, I am prepared to release further research that delves deeper into the applications and implications of over-unity as it was originally conceived.
Now that you've heard what they don't want you to know, you can test this theory. Just do the numbers game and see if you can succeed the amount of energy of just one in the entire unit. And that's the key. Not trying to charge all the equal flows, but just one with the energy of the tie grids in combinations. That means all together. This, my friend, is called True Over Unity, and I designed it, I wrote it, I made it up, and have equations to prove the theory of over unity. They don't want you to know this because the words over and unity are older than electricity itself, which is published in this new book. I just wanted to give a small snippet on what's in this new book. Now, it's up to you to prove if the theory is sound or not.